Yo, went to the Seahawks parade, Super Bowl parade. What a great time to be in Seattle. Happy to see the city alive. Fantastic, good experience for sure. But got a little soccer game after this, so let's read something before then. Hopefully we get a dub. Unfortunately, yesterday we lost the basketball game, but hopefully we come up on top today. The Quadrant 2 paradigm. The key to effective management of self or of others through delegation is not in any technique or tool or extrinsic factor. It is intrinsic. In the Quadrant 2 paradigm that empowers you to see through the lens of important rather than urgency. In the back of the book, I have included an exercise called a Quadrant 2 Day at the Office, which will enable you to see in a business setting how powerfully this paradigm can impact your effectiveness. As you work to develop a Quadrant 2 paradigm, you will increase your ability to organize and execute every week of your life around your deepest priorities. To walk your talk, you will not be dependent on any other person or thing of the effective management of your life. Interestingly, every one of the 7 habits is in Quadrant 2. Every one deals with fundamental important things that, if done on a regular basis, would have a tremendous positive difference in our lives. Application successions. Identify a Quadrant 2 activity you know has been neglected in your life, one that, if done well, would have a significant impact in your life, either personally or professionally. Write it down and commit to implement it. Draw a time management matrix and try to estimate what percentage of your time you spend in each quadrant. Then log your time for 3 days in 15-minute intervals. How accurate was your estimate? Are you satisfied with the way you spend your time? What do you need to change? Make a list of responsibilities you should delegate and the people you could delegate to or train to be responsible in these areas. Determine what is needed to start the process of delegation or training. Organize your next week. Start by writing down your roles and goals for the week, then transfer the goals to a specific action plan. At the end of the week, evaluate how well your plan translated your deep values and purposes into your daily life and the degree of integrity you were able to maintain those values and purposes. Commit yourself to start organizing on a weekly basis and set up a regular time to do it. Either convert your current planning tool into a 4th generation tool or secure such a tool. Go through a Quadrant 2 day at the office in the back of the book for a more in-depth understanding of the impact of the Quadrant 2 paradigm. Sorry, I'm just kind of skipping through here because I'm trying to see what is up next. But anyways, new insights on habit 3, put first things first, by Sean Covey. Many years ago at a family gathering, my dad announced, "I have the greatest trip planned. Are you ready? We're going to Germany." My siblings and I got all excited and asked when, and he replied, "In 3 years." We took out our planners. We didn't have smartphones yet, and realized that none of us had a calendar that booked out that far. Even with Dad's grueling schedule, we did a lot of things together because he was a master at putting first things first and blocking out time in advance. He would say families don't do things together because they don't plan ahead. He had planned weeks, months, years, even decades ahead. I think it is safe to say that I am really close to all my siblings because of this one practice. This habit didn't come naturally to everyone. My older brother, Stefan, is the author of The Speed of Trust and a world-renowned speaker. He is always so prepared and never gives a speech without doing significant research on the organization he's speaking to. But as a kid, he was the worst procrastinator of all time. The night before any best test or paper was due, he'd stay up all night working until the wee of hours of the morning. And then he'd try to fit in an hour or 2 of sleep. He would literally lie on the kitchen table with all of the lights on, knowing that somebody would inevitably run into him while making toast for breakfast. He would not risk sleeping through class, and there was no other way he'd be able to get up. This lifestyle finally caught up to him one day. However, when he had put off doing this math homework for the entire semester, the night before the test, he opened up the textbook for the first time and studied all through the night. The next day, while taking the exam, he said that he totally lost his mind and couldn't remember a single thing. Needless to say, he failed the test. I got such a kick out of it. The urgency addiction. Learning to put things first things first is hard. In fact, this is the habit in general that people struggle with most. This explains why my father felt compelled to write First Things First soon after completing the 7 habits. Why is habit 3 so hard? It's urgency, plain and simple. And the reality of most of us are addicted to urgency. Just take this short urgency index to see how you fare. The urgency test. As you read each statement, circle the number that best describes your response. 0 equals never, 2 equals sometimes, 4 equals always. I seem to do my best work when I'm under pressure. I'd probably give it a 3. I often blame the rush and press of external things for my failure to spend deep introspective time with myself. I would probably say a 2. I'm often frustrated by the slowness of people and things around me. I hate to wait or stand in line. I'd probably say 2 as well. I feel guilty when I take time off work. I would probably say 3. I always seem to be rushing between places and events. I'd probably also say a 3. I frequently find myself pushing people away so that I can finish a project. 3. I feel anxious when I'm out of touch with the office for more than a few minutes. Not in the office, so I'd probably say 0. I'm often preoccupied with one thing when I'm doing something else, probably 3. I'm at my best when I'm handling a crisis situation, probably say 4. The adrenaline rush from a new crisis seems more satisfying to me than the steady accomplishment of long-term goals. I'd probably say 3. I often give up quality time with important people in my life to handle a crisis. I'd probably say a 3 as well. I assume people will naturally understand if I have to disappoint them or let them go in order to handle a crisis. 2. I rely on solving some crises to give my day a sense of meaning and purpose. 3. I often eat lunch or other meals while I work. 3 or 2. I would probably say 2 for that one. I keep thinking that someday I'll be able to do what I really want to do. 4. Accomplishing a lot of tasks, making me feel like I've been really productive. 3. Now that you've gone through the index, add up your total score and measure yourself with the following key. 0 to 25, low urgency mindset. 26 to 24 through 45, strong urgency mindset. 46 plus, urgency addiction. So how did you do? If you're like most, you either have an urgency addiction or you're developing one. It's a self-destructive behavior. It doesn't help the busyness has become a status symbol. According to research by Professor Sylvia Deleza, Nuri Paharia, and Anat Khanna, throughout history, status has been measured by how much leisure time you have. Not anymore. As author Bridget Skold writes, unlike a century ago, when Americans showed their status in leisure time, busyness has become the new badge of honor. So even as we bemoan workplaces where everyone is busy and no one is productive, busyness has actually become the way to signal dedication to the job and leadership potential. One reason for this is that while productivity is relatively easy to measure on a factory floor or on the farm, we have yet to develop good metrics for measuring the productivity of knowledge workers. So we largely rely on hours worked and face time in the office as markers for effort. And with the evidence of technology and the ability to work remotely, being connected and responsive at all hours is the new face time. Shift your paradigm. The solution to overcoming your urgency addiction is to shift your paradigm from one of urgency to one of importance. Here's what we learned about the time matrix. Thanks to smartphones, social media, and the like, it is increasingly difficult to stay out of quadrants 1 and 3. In fact, our data shows that 51.2% of our time is spent responding to things that are urgent. See where we spend our time. I've named each of the quadrants right after this overriding characteristic. People who live in quadrant role, I call the procrastinator. The results of spending too much time here include stress and anxiety, feeling burned out, and mediocre performance. The yes man is the term I use for those who live in quadrant 3. They have a hard time saying no to anything that is urgent or popular, resulting in staying incredibly busy while getting nothing of importance done. Quadrant 4 is where a lot of people live. Meet the slacker. Anything done to excess falls into quadrant 4. Yes, chilling out and streaming a good movie is part of a healthy lifestyle. It's only when that single movie leads to 2 or 3 in a row that it becomes a waste of time, leading to feelings of guilt and apathy. Quadrant 2 is the quadrant of quality. This is where the priorities lives. It's too bad, on average, that we only spend 30.8% of our time here. Time in quadrant 2 results in improved relationships, high performance, and balance. This is where we make time to fix the screen instead of continue swapping the flies. Planning a family trip to Germany 3 years in advance is a quadrant 2 activity, as are exercising, changing your oil, planning your week, going to lunch with a colleague, and doing proactive work. And that is work that is important but not yet urgent. The return on the time and urgent you spend in quadrant 2 is exponential, while the return on quadrant 1 is only equivalent to the input, and the return on quadrants 3 and 4 is virtually non-existent. The key to spending more time in quadrant 2 is to reduce the amount of time you spend in quadrant 3. The quadrant of deception, quadrant 3, seems important because it is urgent and thus it tricks us. When time is scarce, we go through what psychologists call tunneling, meaning we can only concentrate on the most immediate, often low-value tasks. This urgency mode causes us to lose about 13 IQ points. I don't know about you, but I can't afford to lose my IQ. The remedy to quadrant 3 is to start saying no. Say no to responding immediately to every email or a text that comes your way. Say no to serving on that community board when you might be neglecting your family or your health. Say no to filling out that report no one needs. The key to saying no is to have a deeper yes burning inside of you. Clarify the few things you do well, and then start saying no to everything else. Remember, the enemy of the best is the good. In the words of Emerson, the crime which bankrupts men and nations is turning aside from one's main purpose to serve a job here or there. I remember when I made up my mind to write the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens book. At the time, I had a full-time job and kids at home, and so I wasn't sure I was going to get it done. But I felt such a great sense of stewardship toward making the 7 habits come alive for teens that I just had to find a way. My solution was simple. I had to say no to everything else except my family and my job in this book. This was easier said than done. It was only a few weeks later that I was asked to take on a significant leadership role in my community that I really wanted to do. And the person who invited me was an older mentor of mine whom I greatly admired and wanted to please. I was so torn. What should I do? But as I thought about my deeper yes, it became clear. So I made one of those miserable phone calls and told this mentor no. I told him how I wanted to write the book, but I don't think he understood. Over the next 3 years, I had to say no to sleeping in on Saturday mornings, no to some family vacations, and no to 100 other fun and good things. But my plan ultimately worked, and I was able to finish the book while keeping it together at work and home. Truly, the enemy of the best is the good. I'll take a pause there. I'll say it again. Being able to say no is super important. It's probably very hard, especially amongst your friends, especially amongst your colleagues. But if you can start to build the habit of being able to say no, I think it advances not only your habits, but perhaps there's a very good chance that it could advance your life. But one thing that I want to talk about is, where was it? Where he was talking about the kind of three, not three, but in quadrant two, I'll read the sentence, but in quadrant two, activities can exist as exercising, changing your ordering, planning your week, going to lunch with a colleague, and doing proactive work. What I found very interesting is that most people that take the time to change their oil, or are exercising, or just even taking a walk outside, may not seem the most productive work when it comes to actual performance, like in terms of doing your work at your job, or advancing your knowledge or learning. But what I find interesting is that these things are things that are still contributing to a good, healthy life. And I think that's what quadrant two is about, and the act of urgency versus importance, right? What's important is that I need to change my oil, or else my, car may blow up, or there might be some, internal issues that could come about later on, or I need to start exercising because it's important. I will lose some weight, now my health will advance, or even having lunch with a colleague just to relax and talk to somebody and build those relationships that you might be missing out, because perhaps the urgency that you're having in your current life is work, 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 or family, family, family. So I just found that to be very interesting. And yeah, that is all that I have today. I have a soccer game, so I'm pretty excited about that. We'll see how that goes.